Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening, everyone. States around the nation have swiftly closed the door on South Australia following a virus outbreak in Adelaide. From tonight, returning travellers will need to quarantine after Tasmanian authorities reclassified the state as medium risk.
In Adelaide, thousands line up for COVID tests as South Australia faces a fight like it's never seen before.
It's fair to say that we are now facing our biggest test to date, but we can and we must rise to this new challenge.
18 COVID cases have emerged. 5 are linked to overseas and 13 from the suburb of Parafield Gardens. A hospital, several schools and supermarkets have been added to the potential exposure sites.
With all of the testing that we've been doing around the Parafield Gardens cluster, we haven't had any new cases to add to that cluster. And I am feeling very positive about that, I can tell you.
Painful restrictions have been brought back, including the closure of gyms. Workers are again encouraged to do the job from home.
All inbound international flights to Adelaide have now been suspended at our request for the remainder of this week.
Western Australia and the Northern Territory have closed their doors to the state. Queensland and Victoria are rolling out fresh restrictions. From tonight, Tasmania will reclassify the state as medium risk.
This means that people will need to go into mandatory quarantine. If they do not have a suitable residence to quarantine in, they will need to go into government hotel quarantine.
The state government will cover the cost of hotel quarantine. Returning Tasmanians are being urged to rethink travel plans. The changes are too late for some.
Flew in on Thursday night and I thought it'd be a quick turnaround flying out tonight, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult.
Relaxing rules for regional South Australians is being considered, but has not been decided. SA arrivals in Tasmania since November 7 are asked to self-isolate.
We want those people to remain self-isolating overnight tonight, and there'll be further updates as we move forward.
If they've got any symptoms, even mild, that could represent coronavirus infection, I would urge them to contact the Public Health Hotline to arrange testing.
Roughly 900 passengers have arrived from South Australia in the past week.
I think we should be trying to find them and potentially looking at testing all of those people.
Meanwhile, the planned Mercy flight from India to Hobart has been postponed until December. Peter Gutwin wants more time to understand the situation in SA and is still negotiating with the Commonwealth how the plan will work.
We will either get that right or it won't be moving forward.
With the critical 24 hours ahead in testing and tracing, it's hoped tomorrow will provide a clearer picture.
And we're joined live now by reporter Sean McComish for more on the evolving situation. Good evening, Sean. Now, when's the next flight due to arrive in Tasmania from South Australia?
Good evening, Kim. A Jetstar flight is expected to land in Hobart in around an hour. As we heard, South Australia is now classified as medium risk, which means passengers will need to quarantine. The flight left Adelaide around 4:50 this afternoon. It will be met in Hobart by police and biosecurity officers. Passengers will be asked where they've been in South Australia. They'll need to either self-isolate at home or head to a quarantine hotel for the next 14 days. The same rules will apply to other SA flights after that, as well as Spirit travellers. There's also a group of seasonal workers arriving tonight who will need to quarantine. Kim, it's only been a matter of weeks since we saw those very emotional reunions at our airports. Hopefully these restrictions won't be required for too long.
A female police officer has been struck in the neck while a male colleague has received multiple cuts to his arms after an incident in Rosetta this afternoon. The male officer was taken to the Royal Hobart Hospital for surgery. Police believe a 28-year-old man at the property may have been suffering a medical episode when the incident occurred. The case of a Tasmanian police officer who allegedly crashed and killed a pedestrian in January won't be heard until at least next year. Aaron Tasman Bonner is facing a number of charges, including manslaughter over the crash in Launceston. The matter was adjourned until February, with his defence team waiting on an expert report. Mr Bonner has previously pleaded not guilty to the manslaughter charge. The Tasmanian tennis community has been left devastated with all of the summer tournaments, including the Hobart International, cancelled for the upcoming season. It's a blow for players who have spent the majority of this year unable to compete.
Tasmanian tennis player Harry Bouchier has played in the Launceston and Burnie International for the last few years. He's spent 7 months unable to compete and was looking forward to these events.
I have a lot of friends and family that can make it to that tournament, so obviously for me I'm a bit shattered it's not going to happen, but with the circumstances we're in, it's just that's how it's going to be this year, I suppose.
The decision has disappointed Tennis Tasmania, but the loss of the Australian Open would have been far more detrimental for the organisation.
That's a large source of our revenue as a sport, and it's what keeps us going year round, not only in Tasmania but across the country.
Less than a fortnight ago, the state government threw its support behind local tournaments, provided international players quarantined and others travelled from states our border is open to.
Well, of course it's disappointing for all Tasmanians, whether it's the Hobart International, Burnie International, Launceston International, but it's a decision of Tennis Australia.
Uncertainty surrounding potential coronavirus outbreaks forcing Tennis Australia to scrap all tournaments in the lead up to the Australian Open. Victoria has been touted as a tennis hub, with overseas players quarantining upon entry and competing at events in Melbourne before the Grand Slam. But it's not a done deal yet.
The Public Health team need to sign off on all of these arrangements, and they are just not settled.
The Australian Open is due to begin on January 18. Elizabeth O'Neill, 7 Tasmania News.
The legacy of World War II veteran Teddy Sheehan continues to live on through a memorial grant scheme in his name. 17 Tasmanian organisations will share in a total of $50,000 in funding from the first round of the state government program. The Longford RSL Club will use the money to upgrade an ageing kitchen.
It makes the cooking a lot easier. Just give you a basic idea, when you have to pilot light the gas stove that's there now, you have to lay on the floor to light it underneath.
This will make those organisations viable, profitable and important projects.
Teddy Sheehan's Victoria Cross will be formally awarded at a ceremony later this year. Learner drivers have been put through their paces, experiencing firsthand the dangers of driving while distracted. Wearing impairment goggles and texting on their phones, the RACT program aims to teach the next generation of motorists to stay focused behind the wheel.
Out of the classroom and onto the road. Like many 16-year-olds, Layla is on her L-Plays. But today she got a driving lesson of a different kind.
Oh, this one's worse. This one's worse.
All right. Nice and tight, nice and tight.
Part of RACT's distracted driving program, Kingston High School students were given these special goggles, simulating what it's like to drive drunk or while texting. Weaving in and out of this course, they discovered firsthand the dangers of inattention.
It was really hard because you kind of had to concentrate on 2 things at once, and it was really hard to go around the cones while trying to text. And yeah, at the end my text didn't really say anything.
And the message is sinking in.
When I get my P's, there's no, I'll just leave my phone at home or something because it's so hard. I just feel like I'm just very unsafe in the car when I'm trying to text at the same time.
The children, when you're talking around the theory, think that they've got it under control, and then when they get into the real life situation, what they find is that it's very different once they're behind the wheel and actually get distracted.
Part of National Road Safety Week, RACT says distraction contributes to around 1/4 of Tasmania's fatal and serious injury crashes. 2020's road toll particularly devastating.
This year has been a horror year on the roads. We know that with COVID, we didn't have as many vehicles on our roads over a period of months, and yet we're seeing worse statistics this year than in previous years.
The next generation of drivers learning a valuable and potentially life-saving lesson. Michelle Wisby, 7 Tasmania News.
Well, the Cancer Council is urging parents to lead by example and be sun smart in the hotter months. Research shows protecting young children from the sun can significantly reduce their cancer risk in adult years. Experts say Tasmania's high UV levels can be very damaging.
Our UV actually starts going up in September when the temperature is still quite low in Tasmania, and it doesn't actually, it stays quite high right through to the end of April, so we need to be using our sun protection right through that whole period.
The Cancer Council says 25 to 44-year-olds are the worst age group for applying sunscreen. The Tasmanian Olympic swimmer is urging parents to enrol their children in swimming lessons. A new report finds a shocking number aren't able to keep their head above water. Swim Australia is launching a new initiative to encourage more at-risk children to learn as part of Swim Safer Week.
3-year-old Zoe Barwick has been doing swimming lessons for nearly a year, something her grandmother believes is money well spent.
I think being in Tasmania surrounded by water and holiday houses at the beach and boats within the family, it's an essential thing for the child to be able to save themselves in a situation.
But for many families, the costs can put lessons out of reach.
The lessons have become expensive. The new centres cost a lot of money to maintain and run, so that adds to the cost of the lessons.
Swim Australia is launching the Swim It Forward initiative, where people can donate the cost of a lesson going to families who can't afford them. It's an initiative that Peter Tonkin is passionate about. 6 Tasmanians have died as a result of drowning in the last year alone, all of whom were men.
Swimming is the only sport where you can actually save a life by learning how to swim.
Nearly 2/3 of Tasmanian children do not attend swimming lessons, and half of parents have no intention of signing their child up. Parents are advised to enrol their children in swimming lessons prior to starting school. But even if your child is a confident swimmer, supervision is key. Elizabeth O'Neill, 7 Tasmania News.
The Hobart Hurricanes have locked down Aussie captain Tim Payne for the upcoming BBL season. But the latest COVID outbreak in South Australia has thrown tournament plans into chaos. The Premier is concerned but says it's too early to make any rash decisions.
If a season full of hubs wasn't a big enough spanner in the upcoming BBL, throw in a new COVID outbreak.
The Big Bash League is not due to start until the 8th of December, and so that is some time off.
The Adelaide Strikers, one of 4 sides set to take the field in Tasmania's cricket bubble. Whether that is cause for concern from the state government.
That will be determined by what happens with the outbreak in South Australia.
There is a possibility all players from the hotspot may have to quarantine upon arrival into our state. The entire Tigers Sheffield Shield side has been forced to self-isolate after returning from South Australia within the last week. That included Tim Payne. At 9 a.m, he was taking part in a press conference.
Yeah, it means a lot. Very excited.
An hour later, he received the call to rush into quarantine.
Obviously, we will take these matters seriously.
Holding his son in one hand.
There you go.
The Australian Test captain will juggle another commitment this summer, joining the Hurricanes for the first time in 3 years.
I was in the very first squad, I think 10 years ago, so yeah, brilliant to be back amongst it.
The 35-year-old will be available in the back end of the season and rounds out the final local spot in the squad. But 2 more marquee international players will be unveiled before the end of the week.
We have left no stone unturned this year to make sure that we've got the very best list in the competition.
Garth Burley, 7 Tasmania News.
Good evening, everyone. Launceston reaching 22 today, 21 degrees in Hobart, and Burnie and Devonport reaching 19. St Helens, the state's top today with 26 degrees, 25 at Friendly Beaches, Flinders Island, Grove and Bushy Park all 20, and 19 in Smithton. A complex area of low pressure has produced cloud over much of the state today. Across Australia, a cold front extends from New South Wales to the Tasman Sea, while another front can be seen south of the Bight. Convective cloud and thunderstorms can be seen to the far north of the country. Tomorrow's chart shows the high forming to the northeast of Tasmania later in the day as a front passes to the south of Western Australia. Westerly winds tomorrow 25 to 35 knots in the north, 20 to 30 knots in the east and south, and 10 to 20 knots in the west. And there is a gale warning current for southeastern coastal waters from Wineglass Bay to southeast Cape for westerly winds. A strong wind warning is current for the remaining coastal waters except the central west. Mostly sunny and 19 in Hobart tomorrow, 17 in Adventure Bay, morning showers and 14 in Tarraleah. Launceston are top of 21, sunny and 19 in Devonport, 21 in Bridport with wind easing, 18 in Burnie tomorrow, early showers and 17 in Strawn, Marrawall reaching 16. And in the east, mostly sunny and 21 in St Helens, 20 in Swansea and Whitemark reaching 18. And the UV tomorrow remains very high around Tasmania. Looking on to Wednesday now, partly cloudy across the state with north to northwesterly winds. Showers about the west and south on Thursday, contracting to the southeast in the evening. And on Friday, showers about the west and south during the morning. 24 in Perth tomorrow, Adelaide 25, partly cloudy and in Melbourne and Sydney, Brisbane 31 and 36 in Darwin. And currently Hobart mostly cloudy and 18, mostly sunny and 18 in Launceston, and Devonport partly cloudy and 16. And with Road Safety Week this week, it's a good reminder to stay safe on our roads. Kim.
Great advice. Thanks, Chelsea. That is your news for now. I'll be back later with updates. Thanks for joining us this evening. Good night.